yet everything was different. It started with a newly constructed road through the jungle, the Amazon Marginal Highway. Hour after hour, there was nothing but deforestation, dead trees, and smoldering fires.
In those days, to get to our ecological station, you had to walk through the densest virgin rainforest. Nobody lived here. But now all this has been transformed into pasture land, all the way to the horizon and miles beyond. Only the area of our ecological station remains relatively untouched. It's back there where you see that tall tree with a fanning crown, a lupuna tree. Its wood is very valuable, and for years we have been trying to protect this area. In the area of this station, which encompasses just over a square mile, there are over 500 species of trees and at least as many other species of plants. So far, 400 species of ants have been found here, as well as over 350 species of birds, 52 species of bats, which I myself have studied here, and close to 80 other species of mammals. Roughly 50 species of frogs and at least the same number of reptiles. Of the insects, the butterflies are particularly well researched. There are 280 species of butterflies, not including the nocturnal ones, which must number much more than that.
Erich, Juliane's husband, is like her a biologist. He's an expert on wasps. Juliane has specialized in the habitat of bats. Here in the hollow of this giant tree, she observed bats for her doctoral thesis for more than a year.
I see there are still bats inside this tree, a small group. I can see them fluttering around. There is one hanging down. It looks in amazement at me that I have penetrated its habitat.
These are not bats, of course, but a species of cricket.
Cuidado.
Cuidado que me va a morder.
Conoces, ¿no?
Sí,
la
conozco.
especie, todo.
Es esa especie que vive en los árboles, ¿no? Que no es venenosa, no hace nada, pero que...
Ya estás libre otra vez, ¿sí?
The dangers of the jungle are basically misjudged. I'm standing here in Rio Yuyapichis, in the middle of the water, as you can see. There are stingrays, crocodiles, piranhas, and other fish that would love to have a bite of your leg. And yet nothing is happening to me. The piranhas are found here sparsely, and in moving water they are absolutely harmless. Here I have learned how important it is to find water if you are lost in the jungle. A small creek leads to a larger one, which eventually takes you to a river where you can find human habitation and help. When my parents were still here at the ecological station, an incident occurred which served as a precedent for me. An American team made an expedition into the Sierra Mountains, about 30 miles further upstream, and there an accident occurred. The leader of the expedition shot himself in the leg. He was a tall man, over 7 feet and quite heavy, so they sent a young student to get help. The young man soon became hopelessly lost in the jungle, but then did exactly the right thing. He luckily came upon a small spring and followed the water, and in this way reached Yuyapichis, this river here, and 2 days later arrived wading through the water at our station, right at this spot where I am standing.
Back at the site of the crash, we almost overlooked the largest piece of the plain which had become engrafted in the landscape, here filling the frame from left to right. For the first time, Juliane appeared deeply affected by the sight of this. Only now did the catastrophe and her solitude acquire real dimension. The most extensive search in the history of Peruvian aviation turned up nothing. Even helicopters could detect no trace. The jungle had mysteriously swallowed the plane and its 92 passengers.
Ich sah nach oben in die Baumwipfel und bemerkte, dass nirgends.
When I looked up into the canopy of trees, I saw that there were no broken branches. The jungle was completely untouched. There was no sign of a path of impact. I was all alone with my row of seats. Not until 4 days later did I find another row of seats with 3 dead bodies. It was the only contact I ever had with anyone from this plane. It was a horrible experience. The seats were stuck in the ground. They were literally drilled 3 feet deep. They must have hit like a bullet. 3 women had been sitting there. They must have been killed instantly. They were driven into the soil head first. Only their feet stuck out. At first I was aghast when I saw this. I didn't know what to do, but I wanted to know if my mother was one of them, even though it should have been obvious to me that she couldn't be, as she had been sitting next to me. I approached the body slowly. I didn't dare. I took a branch because I didn't want to touch them, and I turned one of the feet over and saw that the toenails were painted. And it then became clear to me that this could not possibly be my mother, because she never painted her toenails. The only things I found at the crash site were a bag of candy, which I later took with me, and a Christmas cake, about this size, as is typical here in Peru. It was completely soaked and full of mud. I tried to eat some, but it tasted so bad that I left it behind. That was obviously stupid. I should have taken it along, but at that moment I didn't realize I would be in the jungle so long. While I was searching there, all of a sudden a sound materialized. It penetrated my consciousness. It had been there the whole time, but somehow I hadn't noticed it. It seeped slowly into my consciousness. It became louder and louder and finally filled my entire head. It was the soft dripping, the trickling of water. I followed the sound and I discovered a tiny little spring where water ran over a stone and dripped into a small puddle. And this very moment I knew, with absolute clarity, that I had to follow this water to get out of this jungle. Anyone else would probably have stayed at the site of the crash and waited for help. But for me, it was clear that this was futile. And I followed this runnel because I knew that a small body of water flows into a larger one, and that I would eventually find help.
The course of water Juliane is following is without doubt the same one she followed then. Eventually, she reached this creek. Not having the slightest idea where she was, and uncertain whether she would ever make